Hey, I am speaking now. If you want Donald Trump to win, then you better shut up, says Kamala Harris, because she got protesters at a rally last night. We talked about it a little bit, but we got more details now. And it seems like the Democrats have a Jewish problem. Well, I mean, I suppose the good news for Democrats is despite the fact that they're getting ragged on pretty heavily by members of the Jewish community over things like this, over the abandoning of Josh Shapiro, who was probably the right candidate. Maybe, I guess. You know, according to my recent search, Jewish voters only make up about 2% of the Democrats' total voter base. However, if they were to flip half of that, 1%, that's a -1 +1 for Trump. These things matter in a very tight race. Now, you may be wondering, for those that are watching on YouTube, the thumbnail that I intentionally chose of my eyes half glazed over. Because I'm so sick of this. We're talking about this last night on Timcast IRL. We got a lot of news. Everybody's bickering. Everybody's talking. Will Tim Walz resign? I mean, he has to. Stolen valor. None of this matters. It's a cult. Okay. The cult calls everybody else the cult. Meanwhile, the cult is, well, let me put it this way. Democrats call conservatives a cult despite the fact that they basically civil war with each other over policy and politicians. So not a cult, actually. Quite a bit of disagreement. You've got a coalition of disaffected and former liberals, post-liberals, conservatives, and libertarians who are going to be supporting Donald Trump because, well, policy matters. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have no policy positions whatsoever. And you got to wonder why. Sort of. I mean, it's because there's probably a shadow campaign. I'm hoping it's because they expect to lose, don't think they can win. But right now, Frank Luntz, the pollster, says if the race were held today, Kamala wins. She's ahead in all the polls. So we'll see. So when I see stories like this that hit the news and everybody's talking about it, I just wonder, does any of this actually matter? The people who are standing behind Kamala Harris and cheering aren't cheering for anything. Lest I remind you, when Joe Biden said, turn on shop under pressure, and everyone's like, wow, and they're all cheering and screaming. I'm just like, what are they cheering for? You know, I didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2016. I thought he was a goofy guy. And I said, the whole thing's dumb. It's fake, nonsense. Trump was funny. So I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for Hillary either. I abstained. And, in 2020, when Trump released his second term agenda, I looked at it and said, I would be lying if I were to argue that these were bad policy positions in his plan for the next term. For that reason, I went from saying I would never vote for the guy to, well, I got to vote for it. I have to. We're seeing too many bad policy plans and negative. I mean, the January 6th committee, all these awful things that Democrats do, right? I know not at the time. I'm just saying, like, we see this stuff with the Mueller report, the impeachments, the incessant manipulations and lies. So when I see Trump's campaign policies, I'm just like, I want to vote for this. I think it is right to have an executive order banning DEI stuff at the governmental level in contracting because it violates the law. No new wars, all of these things. Yeah, you'd be lying if you were like, I can't vote for that. And so I thought that makes sense. Now, I'm genuinely curious when I see these Democrats being like, yeah, Kamala. And I'm like, what are you cheering for? Nothing. I asked one of the Krasenstein bros. These guys are evil, by the way. I genuinely think so. And I'll explain why they use manipulative and assumptive language, just like Tim Walz, to push up for political control. And I asked them, look, why? I just literally said, why doesn't Kamala and Walz have any policy or campaign positions? And the response was, they've only launched their campaign 16 days ago. So what are you cheering for? Seriously? Nothing. This is what we're up against. So, I remind you why I'm glazed over and kind of just like, ugh. Some people are saying I look stoned. Whatever you want to interpret it as. Either way, it represents the exasperation of a political cycle in which half the country has no idea what they're supporting. And we're supposed to argue against that? Dude, so I tell you what. The next segment I have after talking about crazy Kamala is Tim Walz's weird connections with China, his weird support for Chinese Communist Party-style governance, and the Independent Premium reporting that civil war certainly does feel like it's closer than ever. because you have half the country screaming at the top of their lungs, bashing their faces against the wall, Kamala! And she's not even for anything. Perhaps you may be saying, Tim, it's lies. People don't actually support her. Well, there are people at her rallies standing behind her screaming and cheering. You can call them paid. I don't know. I think they're real people. I know people who say they're going to vote for Kamala Harris. And I'm like, for what? Like, tell me why you're voting for this person. And they have no reason. And I'm like, that level of psychotic zealotry, you can't argue against. So it really comes down to a legitimate existential crisis. What happens to this country if a politician with no policies whatsoever gets elected based on sheer psychotic zealotry? I don't know. We can refer to wokeness as a non-theistic religion and say we will get this ideological neo-Marxist fundamentalist government. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll wind things down with a couple other segments. We got the MrBeast scandal. And we got some other news. The MrBeast scandal, of course, getting crazier and crazier. So I do think this is important and worth talking about. Some people say MrBeast doesn't matter or whatever. Yo, guys, we're talking about winning a culture war, and we're talking about a channel that YouTube props up, that YouTube places on the front page to 200 million views per episode for international influence. And you've got accused child predators working at the company. And now employees are coming out and saying registered sex offenders worked there as well with full access to children. Like, this stuff matters. You wonder why the grooming stuff is going on. What we're hearing about in schools. Well, look, man, I don't know. Part of me wants to be like, MrBeast couldn't have known. No. The worst thing about it is this story, a leaked email came out from MrBeast himself, from Jimmy, and they're basically saying they're going to reinforce the woke DEI policies that led to the protection of groomers in the first place. That's a system that cannot be sustained. So, my friends, before we get started, head over to castbrew.com. Why? Because we got coffee. Coffee. Everybody's selling coffee. You know, every single influencer in the world selling the coffee. I'll tell you why. It's easy. Yeah, seriously. But we actually, we were asked about this, and I said, I want to open physical locations where people can hang out. So if you live in an area and you don't know how to meet people and you're trying to find like-minded individuals, how do you do it? We open up coffee shops, and there's a place to go and hang out and spend your days and talk with friends and make new friends. The TVs, it's great. I got the mock-ups for the new coffee shop design, and the TVs on the side have Steven Crowder on them, and I'm like, that's what I'm talking about, baby. You'll go to hang out, and there will be like the TVs that are playing won't have CNN, they won't have Fox News, they won't have MSNBC. They'll have Steven Crowder, Viva Fry and Barnes. They're going to have the Daily Wire. In the mornings on Saturdays, they're going to be playing Bent Key, Daily Wire programming, good kid stuff, no weird, creepy stuff. So for that, what's the easiest product to sell that people can come and hang out? It's coffee. You don't need a license or anything like that. The product is easy to source relatively, and everybody loves it. So go to castbrew.com, buy Cast Brew coffee if you want to support those endeavors, but also head over to timcast.com, click join us to become a member. My friends, we are facing an existential crisis. Fake news, media manipulations threatening this country and our planet. Must I say, it threatens human civilization as a whole. Now, I'm just one guy running a company with several dozen employees working their best to try and produce a program, actually, the morning and nightly show, Timcast IRL, that cut through the noise and give honest opinions on policy plans and bringing in a plethora of political ideologies and guests to talk about these things. This is how we cut through the noise and try to break through the lies and manipulations of the corporate press as they prop up evil people. If you think we do a good job, and you want to see more of this, then head over to timcast.com, click join us, but for $10 per month, you can be supporting that effort. And it's now or never, I guess. I don't want to act like we're the only one, we're the end-all, be-all, we're the best. I don't know. We try our hardest. And the election is coming up in a few months, and we're doing everything we can to try and get out. I will just say this. The truth of the news, and you don't have to agree with my opinions on the news, but to the best of our abilities, the truth of what's going on. That being said, I've got some criticism for conservatives' attacks on Tim Walz today. And the Krasensteins. because I'm going to be fair about the manipulations, but I'm seeing a bunch of conservatives put out fake information about Tim Walz, and I'm just going, why? The dude did lie about being in war. He said he carried a weapon of war in war. He's used assumptive language over and over again to make people think he was in Afghanistan. You don't need to misquote him to trick people into thinking it's worse than it really is. Just tell them what it is. But I'll tell you, if the strategy for victory that conservatives want to engage in, then, is going to be doing the same thing the left does. It's just a world. I don't want to live in that world. It's not about policy to me. It's about what is true and what do we think from what we can discern is true. Head over to Timcast.com. We'll talk about more of that in a little bit, but let's jump to the news now. We'll talk about the news. We got this story from NBC News. I am speaking now. Harris responds after Michigan rally interrupted by pro-Palestinian protesters. The interruption suggested the war in Gaza remains a salient issue among voters. I can only imagine what the protest would have been like if she had chosen Josh Shapiro. Look, a lot of people want to say that, these Democrats are like, no. We had Elad Eliyahu on last night, Timcast IRL. He actually asked Fetterman, and Fetterman denied this report, or the claim that the reason they didn't choose Governor Shapiro for the VP pick is because he's Jewish and supports Israel. And Fetterman's like, no. But that's a lie. Do you think for a second that the lowest common denominator anti-Israel protester is going to make any kind of discernment between Shapiro and whether he does or doesn't support Israel? We saw these protesters on the ground at these universities. If there was a guy who was a Hasidic Jew tried walking on the campus, they didn't ask him if he supported or opposed Israel. They just barred him entry. Oh, there was a woman, I think, was walking around with the Star of David. They did not ask her if she supported Israel. They just started screaming and chanting and then tried to remove her. In fact, the guy who led that, I think, got in trouble for doing it. Like the school was like, you just targeted a Jewish person. So by all means, please, and I say it all the time, criticize Israel, a country. But I'm telling you, there would be a decent amount more individuals on the left protesting Kamala Harris and Shapiro were he the VP pick, because they're not going to ask the question of whether or not he supports Israel. More importantly, they have to support Israel, which is why Kamala Harris shouted back, I am speaking now. I am speaking now. She's going to push back on these protesters. Imagine it was Harris Shapiro, and she was shutting down these protesters. They couldn't afford it. They'd lose Minnesota and they'd lose Michigan because of the dense Muslim populations in those states. Well, we got the clip for you. Let's play the clip. It's a little wonky and hard to hear, but we'll get 30 seconds. They're chanting, Kamala, Kamala, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide.
To end the Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that. Otherwise, I'm speaking.
I love this lady right here. Look at her. She's just like stone-faced, confused, has no idea what's going on. Is that it? Well, there you go. I'll play one more time. Here we go.
The Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that. Otherwise, I'm speaking.
I'll tell you what I find really, really funny about this whole thing is that the protesters actually have a policy and campaign demand, like the defunding of Israel, the U.S. dollars no longer going to Israel. And I agree with the protesters more than I agree with the Kamala Harris campaign or anything they have to offer. Look, a lot of these protesters I do think are anti-Semitic. I think many of them, having met them, use Israel as a cover for what they really think. We've seen this with the Women's March, where these people they say they're friends with Farrakhan. They privately say things like Jews started the slave trade and all the wars and blah, blah, blah. All of those, deeply anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that blame the entirety of Jewish people for the actions of a few. That being said, There are many people who are rightly critical of Israel, and I, too, don't want U.S. tax dollars going to foreign countries to be involved in wars that have nothing to do with us or that we should have nothing to do with. So when I hear protesters chanting against Kamala Harris, not that I agree with their slogan, I can tell you, if I went to that rally and I saw those protesters and they were saying all this crazy stuff about Israel, I'd be like, guys, stop. I don't care about your moral arguments. Let's just agree not to send U.S. tax dollars to Israel. Agreed? They'd say yes. I'd be like, we're done. We don't need to agree on anything else. We don't need to talk about Jewish people or Israel or colonialism or rivers to Caesar, any of that. Okay? I don't care about their moral grandstanding or arguments or worldview. My worldview is the United States should not be funding other countries' wars, especially when Israel is escalating conflicts by bombing Tehran, allegedly. But they did bomb Beirut. We know that. Why are we paying for this? I think the reality is it basically is us. The U.S. is excited for these conflicts, wants theater in the Middle East, and I'm not surprised it's happening. But anyway, why argue if we can agree on one simple policy proposal? So I will stress this one more time. The people who are protesting actually are saying we want a policy position from your campaign. Kamala Harris doesn't have any. Should I pull this up again? The Kamala Harris website. I'm really hoping that we come up here and there's going to be some policy positions on the No, still nothing on their website, dude. You give me these excuses, these Democrats, the Krasensteins, they're like, you only launched your campaign 16 days ago. And she doesn't know what she wants to do. She's the current sitting vice president. Can't she be like, abortion? At least just like put a big thing saying like abortion. How about tax the rich? Give me one. They don't have one. They don't have one. So I don't know what to tell you, man. What I can say, though, is funny enough. Apparently, after the rally, Josiah Lippincott says complete chaos after the Detroit Kamala rally. It's been 2.5 hours and people are still unable to find shuttles back to their cars. Campaign staff has no idea what's happening. Rally was held near a UPS delivery center, so dozens of trucks are mixed up with buses. Tempers are high. You know what? I got to stress this. You get a lot of people all the time acting like, all the Democrats are dumb. Look, man, you go to a Trump rally, you're going to hear a lot of dumb things from dumb people. I mean, no disrespect. And I mean the same thing for these people at the Kamala rally. People will show up because they want to hear and they may not know. That's the reality. A lot of people go to Trump rallies. That's the point of the rally because they like Trump, but they want to hear what he has to say. And then you'll get these reporters walking up to him being like, can you tell me one policy Trump's done? And they're going to be like, the border wall? And they'll say, what about it? And then, it's going to like, they're not going to be fully fleshed out ideas from people attending a rally because they like a guy and they want to hear from him. Same is true for Kamala Harris. There are people who like her and Tim Walz, and they're going there to hear from them. I will just say, in my opinion, it is a tendency among people on the right to actually have a general idea of what they're talking about. And sometimes the media doesn't really like it, and they try to twist it to make it seem like these people don't. And they'll go out and try and find the stupidest of people. But I'll make a wager for you. We want to do, and we should do this. How we do this, it's really hard to launch projects. I tell you this. I want to do a game show. I want to do political trivia where we grab run-of-the-mill Democrats and run-of-the-mill Republicans, and we say political trivia is a quiz show. And the way it works is there will be questions that are worth points, some harder than others. A question will be asked of both individuals. You will then get 10 seconds to write down your answer, and then we reveal both answers. If you are correct, you earn those points. Meaning if both players get every question right, it's a tie game. And then we got to go to some kind of sudden death. But the idea is not to have fastest finger button, buzzers. It's to, can you actually answer the questions? Now, of course, I did this face-off thing with Michael Knowles, and it's kind of similar. You write down on the whiteboard your answer, and then you show it, and then you earn points. Those are fun and funny. Hey, why not do basically the same thing as a game show, a real game show with real cash prizes, liberal versus conservative? Can you answer these basic questions? And the questions can be really simple. Like, name the candidates for the presidential election in 2012 on the Democratic ticket and the Republican ticket. Doot, And then you play the little song, and then you can answer the questions, and then you can write down. Here we go. 2008. Who were the Republican candidates, president and vice president? Easier ones like that. And people are like, oh man, what's that? Oh, who was that? Who was Romney's VP pick? Honestly, I don't remember. It was pretty uneventful, and I don't rightly care about Mitt Romney. So not saying it would be the easiest thing for everybody. I'm not saying I could answer all these questions. Those are easy ones. But then you can get a little bit harder with more of the modern stuff. I'm telling you, I think you'd see a tendency, not a guarantee, that conservatives would would win these things. Again, I'm saying maybe like 55 to 60%. And that's what you see with a lot of these rallies. Now, I bring it to you, the post-millennial, because, oh boy, the Democrats' Israel problem is... Post-millennial reports Biden-Harris administration slams ousted squad member Cori Bush for inflammatory rhetoric after she told Jewish lobbying group, "I'm coming to tear your kingdom down." Well, to be fair, I'm pretty sure it was an Israeli lobbying group, not a Jewish lobbying group. And I don't mix these things up. Come on, man. Elad Eliyahu, he made a point. He was like, there are ways to criticize Israel that are not anti-Semitic. The issue is that often many of these people criticize Israel in ways that are or are at least close to anti-Semitic tropes and things like this. And I agree. But I don't like the idea that if there's a lobbying group that's basically like pro-Israel, that you'd call it a Jewish lobbying group. Jewish lobbying group is going to be like, hey, man, don't bomb synagogues. Don't attack Jewish people on the street. We saw this in New York where Hasidic Jews were being just beaten up and attacked, largely by black residents in New York City. You want a Jewish lobbying group? They're going to say, please enforce the law. Now, if they're literally just lobbying for a foreign country, which was the case with with Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman, I think that distinction is pertinent. The White House attempted to distance itself from Congresswoman Cori Bush on Wednesday following her inflammatory comments. After her primary defeat on Tuesday, Bush lost to St. Louis prosecutor Wesley Bell and will not be returning. We know this. Cori Bush says all they did was radicalize me. Said now they need to be afraid. She's like, the strings have been cut. What did she say? I will tear your kingdom down. I'm coming to tear your kingdom down. AIPAC, I'm coming to tear your kingdom down. And let me put all of these corporations on notice. I'm coming after you too. Good luck. You've lost political power, and I don't know what else you'll be able to muster. They removed you. In response to Bush's comments, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre emphasized the importance of lowering political rhetoric. The president has always been very clear, and very recently after the assassination attempt on the last president, about lowering the rhetoric. And I do agree with that. But let me tell you, my friends, how are they going to handle this? Cori Bush gets votes. She got 50K plus. Ilhan Omar gets votes. AOC gets votes. And those votes hate Israel. So what are you going to do, Democrats? How are you going to deal with this fracturing in your party when you shout down pro-Gaza protesters? Take a side. So this was the idea with Josh Shapiro. I genuinely thought they'd choose Josh Shapiro because he was Jewish and they needed to repair the sentiment among Jewish voters, which make up about 2% of the Democrat voting bloc. And also, he's the governor of Pennsylvania, proving he could win and give give Kamala some improvement there. And they chose Tim Walz, which tells you something. Either they're weaker in Minnesota than we realize, or they weighed the loss of the progressive left and Muslim voters with the loss of Jewish voters. And they said, we are better off losing a large portion of the Jewish vote instead of the progressive left and the Muslim vote. That's basically what they said. New York Post says New York Jewish leaders blast ugly anti-Semitic campaign against Josh Shapiro in Veep stakes. Now, I'll tell you, by all means, you're going to say it's not about being Jewish, it's about Israel. Believe whatever you want to believe. New York Jewish leaders are saying it's anti-Semitic. And what matters here is not that you might be right or wrong, and you may be right. What I'm saying is the people who would vote Democrat don't see it that way and are not going to vote Democrat because they don't see it that way. They say Jewish leaders in New York fumed that Shapiro was vilified in an ugly anti-Semitic campaign as Vice President Kamala Harris whittled down her Veep contenders, ultimately passing over the Pennsylvania governor in favor of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Shapiro, who is Jewish, could have figured that one out by his name, faced more scrutiny and criticism than other contenders because he's pro-Israel, they claimed. No one should dismiss Governor Shapiro. No one should dismiss that Governor Shapiro was subjected to an ugly anti-Semitic campaign to delegitimize him. Mark Traeger, CEO of the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York and a former Brooklyn councilman. No one should take the Jewish community's vote for granted. Traeger, the son of Ukrainian Jewish refugees and grandson of Holocaust survivors, said Shapiro was unfairly targeted because of his stance. There was not much daylight between Josh Shapiro and the other contenders on policy, but he was singled out. He was vilified. This is correct. Not because he was Jewish. The letter that was written from progressives was about him supporting Israel. He tried to distance himself, which was silly. And now I tell you this. Many Jewish politicians and leaders do not see a distinction between Israel and criticizing people for being Jewish. And I think that's silly, to be honest. A guy who, look, this is what always really bothered me about the anti-Semitism that out here from conspiracy wingnuts. And I'm not saying right or left or anything, just conspiracy wingnuts. I remember I was talking to some guy, and this is like 5 years ago, and he was talking about how Jews do this and Jews do that. And I'm like, dude, you know why I don't like that? And like the yay stuff. I'm like, my friend who's an acoustic folk singer, minimum wage, like poor American, is Jewish. There's no bag of gold around her neck. She's not part of any cartels. She has no idea what you're talking about. She has a Sabbath dinner or what is it called? Shabbat, and hangs out with their family. And that's all they're doing. So if you want to criticize powerful elites who are Jewish, please. But that's why I've never liked it when people are like, Jews do X. And that being said, to these people who are like Israel and Jews are the same thing, and if you criticize Israel, you're anti-Semitic. No, shut up. My friend who plays guitar and, on the subway and works at a coffee shop has nothing to do with Israel. And attacking her because she's Jewish with some weird conspiracy about banks, which she's not involved in, but then also then on the other side, the pro-Israel side saying criticizing Israel is criticizing her. No, it isn't. Okay, there's a distinction there. A government is a government and a people are a people. That being said, Democrats are going to reel from this because these leaders in New York and many Jewish people do not care for the distinction. They do not want you criticizing Israel because Israel is the only Jewish state on the planet. What I mean to say is Democrats will lose votes because of this. Donald Trump will work to collect those votes. And if we're talking about, I believe the number is around 70% to 80% of Jewish Americans vote Democrat. If they lose that percentage, let's say every single Jewish person says, you know what? No. That's 2% of Democrats' voter base. Small. It is. But a 2-point swing, that gives Trump a 4-point edge. Democrats cannot afford this. And so they're between a rock and a hard place. Lose the progressive vote? Yikes. Or lose the Jewish vote. Pick one. You can't have both. And that's where we're at. Now, I will stress with all that being said, Kamala Harris surges ahead of Trump in the national polling, and they're saying she's going to win. So good luck. Good luck. Poli-sci professor told SCNR, Biden shows clear signs of aging. The public viewed him as too old, but Kamala does not have this problem. Over at the RCP average, we can see she's currently ahead of Trump by 0.8. Now, let me tell you this. This day in history, August 8th, 2020, Joe Biden was up 6.4. And Clinton was up 7.2. What does this mean? Nothing. It's all completely meaningless. Hillary Clinton lost despite being the polling favorite. Joe Biden won. He was the polling favorite. And now Kamala Harris is up by only 0.8%. The only thing that matters is going to be ballot harvesting. You can ask anybody in the world who they want to vote for. You'll get a lot of people saying, yeah, Kamala, and they won't show up and vote. The real question is, do Republicans have the infrastructure behind them to actually collect ballots? I don't know that they do. I think that Republicans are taking for granted how the system is being operated. I think they're ignoring the real issues at play. The Help America vote verification system is broken and something does not make sense. Yet here we are. getting very little answers. Now, I will shout out Missouri AG Bailey. He won his primary recently, but I will shout him out because he's actually investigating, along with many other governors, the Act Blue donation scandal, which many obviously believe, and I think it's fairly obvious, is foreign donation laundering. So James O'Keefe uncovers this. The story explodes. Individuals on fixed income somehow donating hundreds of thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of times, small donations. There are candidates who have received $200,000 or political action committees from like some little old lady in upstate New York who's on a fixed income. And she's like, I donated once or twice. And James O'Keefe goes, it says here you donate 17 times per day, every day for a year. And she's like, no, I don't do that. Somebody is manipulating the system. But I will add, I don't think that the issue there with Act Blue is just reserved to Democrats. I do think Win Red may have something like this. I don't know for sure. What I can say is the scandal is primarily focused on Act Blue, which is the Democrats' fundraising system. Now, you know why I think Republicans ain't all with it? Well, let me show you this. Bon Iver rallies support for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz with Battle Cry of Freedom cover in Wisconsin. So there's this music festival. Some people are saying that Kamala Harris was speaking at a music festival. I think that it was called like Country something USA. But these videos pop up, and this is why I say the Krasensteins are evil. I'll show you this one in a second. Actually, let me pull this one up right away. Grok, what are you doing over here, Grok? I don't care about. Here we go. So this is Brian Krasenstein saying, "Oh my God, this is Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Kamala is in town. This is not AI generated. This is a real crowd that was not manipulated like Trump sometimes does." What? Wisconsin is a crucial swing state. There's a huge crowd of people. It's real. It's not for Kamala. It's for Bon Iver. I mean, it's great for Kamala. It is a Harris rally, but Bon Iver's a huge band. So it's a mix. I do think it's fair to say that Kamala pulls in crowds. I think it's silly to say she doesn't. But why isn't Brian telling you that? This is what Trump's campaign needs to be doing. You know, and we talked about this last night. The crew is just basically like, who could he get to perform? Kid Rock? I'm like, well, Kid Rock is big, but you could certainly get a lot of bands that would play shows. So depending on how big they are, does it really matter? Is Bon Iver a Billboard chart topping, current presence? Honestly, I don't. Let me actually check. They're big. They've got some songs I think I've heard of, but I don't think they're that big. Let me see if they've got their discography. Grammy Awards. They're a big band. That's cool. People are going to show up to see them. Let's see. Bon Iver discography. Yeah, they got some Billboard chart toppers. What is this? Is this in the U.S.? One album reached number 2. What about their songs? Okay, so singles. Never mind. They don't have any. Okay, never mind. Yeah, okay, so Bon Iver's never actually hit the Hot 100. Wow, really? I thought that, I find that, okay, that's actually pretty crazy. I thought they would have. The best they did was Bubbling Under at number 18, which puts them in the top 200 songs in the country. That's good, man. That's good. I got no beef. And the U.S. rock charts. So that's great. That's great. Good for them. You don't need the biggest celebrity rock bands in the world. Kid Rock is fantastic, but Trump's campaign could easily find modern rock bands that could play songs that would attract large crowds. I got to be honest. Is Creed available? Are they Trump supporters? It's not so much about, whether you get good rock shows or whatever. What's the point of a rally? Now, I know people are going to say Donald Trump draws in massive crowds already. Okay. But Trump wants to reach new people. This is what the Kamala campaign is doing, the Harris campaign. You say Bon Iver is going to play, and normies show up. And then before they do, Kamala Harris comes out and she goes, I'm going to beat Donald Trump. And maybe only 1% of the people who showed up who never heard her speak vote for her. But that's the point. Donald Trump having a rally where it's just him. He's attracting the choir and preaching to the choir. Of course, the choir's large, but Trump should show up at other events with bands that are fans. And then he can speak and say, I want to thank the band for allowing me to come here today and let you know that, when elected, I'm going to help improve the economy. We're going to unleash American energy. We're going to fix our border. We're going to get better trade agreements. We're going to help you get jobs. We're going to reduce unemployment. We're going to deal with inflation, and you guys will live better lives. Thank you. And here's the band. That's what I'm talking about, reaching new people. So people want to criticize Kamala Harris for doing things like this. It's clever. It's clever campaigning. Do not underestimate your political foes. What I will say of Brian Krasenstein is, see how he says Kamala Harris is in town? Yeah, right. Because if he couldn't say it was a rally, this is assumptive language. The goal of which, like we've seen with Tim Walz, is to trick you into thinking something because you use assumptive language. The example, of course, being when Tim Walz goes, I served in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. My battalion defended bases. The assumption is he was in the Middle East. That, to be fair, on many occasions he has said in Europe, and I'll show you that in a second. But when he says things like, I carried a weapon of war in war. No, he didn't. You were in Europe. You never saw war. However, he's going to go, no, what I meant was the United States was at a time of war and we were providing security for the European theater. What European theater? The fighting was in the Middle East. Assumptive language. The example that I like to give to make it much simpler is, this is the game played by many of these Democrat pundits, is you say something like, the example that I gave the other night is, if I were to tell all my employees, if everybody shows up early today, I am going to do everything I can to get a $1,000 steak for every employee. We are going to have the greatest dinner you've ever had, $1,000 steak, the best steak prepared by the best chef. Come in early and we will see to it that we get everybody a $1,000 steak. Oh, sounds great. So everybody shows up. Then in the middle of the day, when people are like, hey, what's going on? You know, we're here early. You say, I need you to work overtime. And they say, okay, but don't worry. I got good news. We got the dinner. We got the dinner. And then everyone starts cheering, right? Whoa, 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 whoa. I never said I got you the steaks. I said I got you the dinner. The dinner was $20 pizzas. So everybody stays late. Then the dinner comes in and it's pizza. And they go, I thought it was going to be a steak. Hey, whoa, whoa, I never said that. I said we try. I said that we got dinner. That's assumptive language. Manipulating the trust people have in you, using language to make them believe something that's not true, and you know you do it, and you do it intentionally. That being said, I would be remiss if I only criticized the Krasensteins, because I got a couple more for you. DC Drano posted this. We've had him on the show before, and so I got to say, I'm not a fan of these posts. Do better. I will say the Krasensteins, in my view, because I follow all of these individuals, do this substantially more often than, say, DC Drano or Benny Johnson. But I believe these tweets from DC Drano and Benny Johnson should be criticized. He says, Biden says there will not be a peaceful transfer of power if Trump wins. Okay, what's fair? We covered this, and our title was, Biden says there will not be a peaceful transfer of power if Trump wins in flub, in gaffe. Because he immediately says
transfer of power in January 2025.
If Trump wins, no, I'm not confident at all. I mean, if Trump loses, I'm not confident at all.
I mean, if Trump loses, I'm not confident at all. He misspoke. Criticize him for being an absent-minded, old, cognitively degenerative man. He did not. The implication with these red lights is that if Trump wins, Biden is going to do something to stop Trump. No, the real story is that Biden struggles to speak properly and is saying that Trump will do something if Trump doesn't win. So I think it's fair to say that Biden did say that in a ridiculous gaffe and then corrected himself. That context matters. Because when you then follow up with, this comes days after Rep. Jamie Raskin said Dems will create civil war conditions, which he literally did, and that is fair. And then this one from Benny Johnson. I like Benny. Benny's a friend, but this is not a good tweet, and I will criticize it. And he should correct this, edit it, or delete it, because this is a fake quote, okay? Stolen valor. Tim Walz lies again about service in Afghanistan. Tim Walz, quote, my battalion provided security in the early stages of war in Afghanistan. He didn't say that. Tim Walz never, ever deployed to Afghanistan. Tim Walz has also lied about deploying to war zones. He never deployed to Afghanistan. He did lie about being in war. But let me play what he actually said. Now, fair point, Benny did show the video. So that's why I'm saying it's not nearly as bad as what the Krasensteins do and many of these liberal Democrat pundits. But still, I'm going to call it all out.
Very background?
I spent 24 years in the National Guard, some of that full time. I was an artilleryman. I deployed in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. My battalion provided base security throughout the European theater from Turkey to England in the early stages of the war in Afghanistan. And
so where is this quote? My battalion provided security. What did he say? In the European theater.
Provided base security throughout the European theater from Turkey to England.
That's not in the quote. My battalion provided base security in the European theater from Turkey to England in the early stages of the war in Afghanistan.
In the early stages of the war in Afghanistan.
I don't see what was the point of cutting out that massive context in which Tim Walz did not say he was in Afghanistan. And you know why I have a problem with this is that this post is exactly what Democrats will use to counter the claim that Tim Walz lied about his service. Tim Walz did. Tim Walz knew he was going to be deployed and then chose to leave. And there's even a report from people who worked with him that he bypassed the chain of command to try and get permission to leave before he would be deployed. The media has reported he hadn't received his orders yet. That's manipulative language. They had received notification that deployment was likely coming. They didn't get their orders, but he was told it was going to happen, and he had a choice: retire to run for Congress or stay with his men and go to Iraq and serve his country. And he chose not to do the latter. He chose to leave, and by all means, criticize him for that. I've heard stories, and many veterans have pointed out that they were planning retirement and delayed it when they were called upon to act for these United States. That's an opinion. However, when we want to criticize the guy for saying, I carried a weapon of war in war, for which he's using that statement to strip us of our rights, we point it out and say he was never in war. The Democrats then take this tweet from Benny Johnson and say, play the video and look what Benny wrote. The quote is incorrect. He never said he was in Afghanistan. They're lying. And that is the only video chance you're going to get. Many of these normies who you could expose to the truth will see this one instead and go, wow, he didn't say he was in Afghanistan. He says he was in Europe, from England to Turkey, Turkey to England. So this is a mistake. But to be fair, Benny did post the actual video. You can watch for yourself. So anybody, for whatever reason he posted this quote, be it intentional or otherwise, the individual has a chance to actually hear what Tim Walz had to say, as opposed to what I often criticize the presidencies for not providing any context at all. And so when you follow them, all you get is manipulation and lies. It is true that Biden said there will not be a peaceful transfer of power if Trump wins, but that is assumptive language. However, Drano also posted the full video for which you can hear Biden say, I mean, if Trump loses. So I give them half demerits and I give Krasenstein full demerits. Criticism where it is due. But I'll wrap this early first segment up, and we'll move on to our next big story, Civil War. In just a second, for those that are watching live, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, follow me on X at Timcast and Instagram. We'll talk about this next segment in a moment, but we're going to go to Super Chats and hear what y'all have to say. Bring in your commentary before we jump to this next story. And this is not just about Civil War that's coming up. It's about Tim Walz's long history with China, the policies in which he says there's no free speech, in which he wants you've got this is not Minnesota, but this is Michigan Secretary of State saying snitch on each other, and Tim Walz's COVID snitch on your neighbor hotline. It's not so much all about Civil War. I just think that we're looking at Tim Walz, who is pro-Chinese Communist Party style governance, and he loves it. And this is what we're about to get unless something happens. Now, I will point out, they say that I believe this is a Stephen Marsh who wrote this, who I've interviewed. I think he's been here twice, actually. The next Civil War, the signs are there that American society has just entered the most dangerous political state and points to more violence to come. I agree with him. The only difference is he's a liberal. So it's a very interesting contrast. We'll talk about that, but let's go to your Super Chats. Someone points, this is a Humble Beginning saying Bon Iver is also from Eau Claire. People at Country USA are definitely more Trump supporters been there. There are a lot of people with Harris signs, and they're holding up Harris signs. It's good for her. It is what it is. All right. Tacti Platy says, Tim, check out Frederick Keys. They have box suites my company used to use. Wife and I went last month. Safer and closer than Baltimore and DC options. What is that? Is that minor league? I don't know. We don't have any great teams that I want to go see, to be honest. Like, no disrespect to the Nationals or the Orioles. I'm from Chicago. It's not like I'm going to go fly to see the Cubs or anything, but I also don't care that much for the Orioles or the Nationals. Let's go. Seawit says, Tim, have you looked into doing anything with the Fighting G community? It's a major tight-knit community that's a moderate cultural movement and will be huge for growing culture. I don't know what that is. Don't know. All right. Purple says, came back to say hi. Show got better again. Well, all right. Thank you very much. I will also stress this, my friends. Share the show. Become a member at Timcast.com because we get shadow banned a lot. A lot. Like yesterday, people were saying, hey, it's better now. The shadow banning's gone. No, it was still there. All right. Pete Shoot says, welcome to the first episode of TimcastNews. Considering everybody keeps saying things like tampon Tim, churncoat Tim, traitor Tim, I'm like, hey, whoa. My name is T. Daniel Poole. Yeah, I always thought it was funny when people would like abbreviate their first name and then go by their middle name. A lot of people do that. Some people use fake names. But my name is Timothy Daniel. It's a strong Irish Catholic name. I'm kidding. I really don't care if you insult Tim Walz and say Tiny Tim or whatever. Let's see what else we got. Jacob Thompson says, channeling my inner Trump. Kamala Harris, some might call her. She shams about her race and shams her way to the White House. It's true. It's true. She does, you know. All right. What else we got? Devin Fails says, I was overseas in 2016 in the Army. None of us voted, but we were all watching the results as they came in. I knew more Jill Stein voters over Clinton supporters than I knew one Stein voter. Wow. Noah Sanders says, Tim, my father said he heard Walt say freedom isn't freedom of speech on the news yesterday. I don't know if it was a new or old clip, but it's terrifying either way. Stolen valor vet against FOS for VP. Ew. I think everyone needs to start calling on Tim Walz to resign. I'm not kidding. The talking point from every Republican, Donald Trump's going to give a press conference today at 2. Donald Trump should immediately say, he should do the press conference and say, recently news reports emerged that Tim Walz lied about seeing combat in Afghanistan. He has used he has spoken in such a way numerous times to make people assume he served in combat in the Middle East. This was reported on by CNN, which criticized him for doing so. The Washington Free Beacon has also brought this up, and many people are questioning whether or not this is stolen valor. But the fact that Tim Walz has repeatedly claimed to have been in war while he was serving in Europe, I say, warrants a resignation. To those who would lie about fighting for this country when they did not, we do not respect you. We do not believe you belong in public office. Tim Walz should apologize for making these statements, and he should resign immediately. Now, he won't. But this is the talking point that I think needs to be made. Mike Cernovich hits the nail on the head with the hammer. Man, I see some sad stuff. They're talking about, let me pull this up actually. I want to pull this up real quick. See if I can find it from Mike Cernovich calling out the stolen valor. You got a video showing Tim Walz, congressional constituents, showing up to his office, confronting his staff with questionable claims of being an Afghan war vet. Let me see if I can find this one. It's about, what is it, Coronado, California. And I think someone posted a photo. Let's see. CNN reporter admits the entire premise of her story today was false based on the Walz press release she couldn't be bothered to look up earlier today. Wow. That's amazing. What do we have here? Veterans gossip like teenagers. The Tim Walz stuff is in every group text and Facebook page. CNN can lie as much as they want. It doesn't matter. Stolen valor is at critical mass. There's a photo that I saw. And, you know, a lot of veterans are posting photos of themselves saying, here's me not being Tim Walz. But there's a photo of fallen soldiers that really, really gets you. And I want to see if I can find it. I don't know if I can find it. Maybe I don't think I can. Well, how do I search for this? I really want to try and find this post. I thought Mike's. Yeah, here we go. We got this one from Mike Cernovich, and then let me see if I can find this photo. Bear with me 1 second. I don't think so. So, all right, I'll just pull up this Cernovich tweet right here so I can get to it. He says, to all the smart think tank kids downplaying stolen valor, shall we go out to in Coronado, California? The deal is you must lie about your military service to the people at the bar. Tell them you deployed to combat. You don't get to leave. Remember, it's no big deal. I wonder if they have this photo. Someone posted a photo of a bar with American flags and soldiers who lost their lives. And I got to tell you, man, Cernovich is right. There are parts of this country where people have lost their loved ones fighting for this country, and worse still, for the lies of people like George W. Bush. This is one of the reasons Trump won. He said to Jeb Bush, "Your brother lied to the American people." And so there's a lot of parents who are wondering why their children died. You know, in Afghanistan under Joe Biden, we had, I think the number is 13. Forgive me if I'm getting it wrong. Joe Biden lied and said not a single service member died. I want any one of these Democrats to go to the home of one of these parents who lost their child and ask them how they think about Tim Walz claiming he was in war. Oh boy, that matters. That matters. Arlie Long says thoughts on Tulsi Gabbard being listed on government watch list, terror watch list. Saw in the Daily Mail yesterday. Thank you for doing the morning live show. We've got that one ready to go in my story about civil war and communist Chinese style of governance, which is coming up in just about a minute or so after I read a couple more super chats. All right. Barely a Millennial says there was chaos after Camila's rally in Detroit. Look up Josiah Lippincott. We got it. We had that tweet pulled up for you. All right. Jason Dixon says, bro, the Tim A. Walz, I am not the original source. Credit goes to Uncapped Turtle. I have to give credit to him. Well, there you go. Look at that. At first, we thought it was Raymond G. Stanley Jr. Then we thought it was Jason Dixon. Now it's Uncapped Turtle. There you go. It is honorable, all of these individuals saying, no, credit does not go to me. I'm not your buddy guy, says it's unnerving. The West had a chance at sea change through elections, yet evil has maintained its grip. America, for better or worse, is the world's last hope at stopping something far darker globally. Indeed, indeed. Well, let's do this. A report recently about Tim Walz's strange connections to China. Tulsi Gabbard on the terror watch list. Let's start with this story from The Independent. I predicted the next U.S. Civil War would be in 2040, but I was wrong. It feels closer than that, says Stephen Marsh. As the fallout of the attempted assassination of Donald Trump continues, Stephen Marsh, author of The Next Civil War, says that the signs are all there that American society has just entered its most dangerous political state yet, and points to more violence to come. Now, this is from a couple weeks ago, but considering what we're seeing now with Tim Walz as the VP pick, his strange history with China, serious, I fear that there are many potential catalysts for what civil war may be. Abortion? Maybe, but I don't think so. Babies can't fight in war. You know, in 1861, slaves fought for their freedom. Not all of them, but many did. And that meant you had a population that was going to be fighting whether the North or South wanted to. You look at many other civil wars and they're drawn on ideological lines. Perhaps it's going to be abortion. Perhaps it will be, transgender surgeries. There are states that allow third parties to kidnap children to bring them for a sex change, and they won't be prosecuted. So a groomer can trick a kid into meeting up with them, drive them to Washington, and they're protected. And many states do this. But I wonder if Tim Walz, Kamala Harris end up winning, and they have deep connections to China, an October surprise comes out showing that beyond his weird connections, he's actually allegiant to China. Now you've got some very serious political conflict. Trump, the Russian, versus Harris, the Chinese communist. But let's read this story from The Independent, and then we'll break it down. Back in 2018, this is from Stephen Marsh, by the way, when I was working on my book, The Next Civil War, I remember speaking to an FBI agent who had been undercover for many years with the far right. By then, I had done my own time with extremists from both sides. And I had a question. The right was responsible for over half of all political murders in the United States, and the left was somewhere around 4%. How could he explain the difference? Why was one side so much more violently effective than the other? He knew right away. The left blows itself up before it can blow anyone else up, he told me. The right, even on its insane fringes, can muster basic solidarity and order. As the 2024 election heats up, that undercover agent's truth seems freshly valid to me. It feels like the right has already organized a path to autocracy. The left, which loudly claims to be defending U.S. democracy, is in shambles. Now I will pause. Stephen Marsh has a massive blind spot. I have the mental capacity to understand that what he is saying in these first two paragraphs are actually correct, but he's missing a lot of context. With this massive blind spot and a lack of understanding what's actually going on in the world, and I talked to him about this personally on the show, I said, you're right about the far right's organizational abilities, the potential for autocracy, but you completely are blinded as to what the left does. Right now, as he's saying, they're in shambles. Tim Walz is the VP choice with strong connections to China and very similar plans to attacking the free speech. And if the argument is, yeah, but they're so weak, they can't win, I can say the same thing about Donald Trump ignoring ballot harvesting. So I say moot point. Both sides have plans and organizational power. I believe that the first term of Donald Trump disproves the claims that Donald Trump and the right are those leading us to autocracy. Though the potential exists, and I recognize that far-right extremists, yes, have committed much more murders, they're on the fringes. They're not the mainstream. What he's ignoring is what I describe as acute versus blunt force terrorism. On the far right, you'll hear stories. And what does far right even mean? I honestly don't know. They're individuals who tend to be more aligned with closing borders and things like this. And you'll see acts of serious violence, not always in the United States, mind you. But when you do, you say, wow, these people are dangerous. Look what they've done. What is ignored by Stephen Marsh, because he has a blind spot, is when the far left engages what I call sustained blunt force terror. That is to say, Summer of Love riots do not fall on the maps of any of these people because they're like, yeah, but so what? They're just riots. Well, what did they do? They caused billions of dollars in damage, destroyed people's livelihoods, demanded that people bend the knee, and guess what? Police officers did. So it's really a question of strategy. If your concern is that there are ultra-traditionalists and fringe right-wing terror groups and racists, sure. And they may, rarely, but sometimes, engage in acute acts of terror which kill lots of people. But does that cause radical change? It actually causes change in the direction of the left, taking away gun rights and things like this. You take a look at the left, and they forced the police to drop to one knee. They forced many different jurisdictions to get rid of their police department or to strip funding from their police departments. In some instances, some police departments did actually close down. To ignore the blunt force terror of the left is a blind spot. But that being said, he says the causes of the potential collapse of the American Republic have been well established since 2008 at least. Countries collapse not because of single events, but because of deep systemic failures. And the U.S. exhibits many of the most toxic systemic failures. Negative partisanship drives its political system and increasingly its legal system. Completely agree. He's right. Income inequality is at levels the country has not seen since its founding. He is correct. Faith in institutions of all kinds, Congress, the media, religious, the courts, steep decline. 100% correct. I wish the guy could understand that when you look at other civil wars throughout history, you often don't need a rabid organizing force of autocratic leftists to get civil war. Seemingly, he's not read about Spain. The issue is when you have a cultural zeitgeist. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have no campaign policy positions. They are purely negative partisanship. They are exacerbating this all the same. To act like it's the right doing it is just silly nonsense. He adds, meanwhile, its archaic election system, completely agree, the Electoral College, disagree, simply does not reflect in a meaningful way the popular will. Fewer and fewer people in the United States believe in their political system, and those who do believe in it less and less. He's right, but to criticize the Electoral College is a genuine mistake. All of the realities were true enough when I published The Next Civil War 2 years ago, but they were in the background. You had to look to find them. When I was creating the scenarios to frame the chapters, the date I used as shorthand was 2040, not anywhere close to 2024. Might I say, Stephen, if you end up seeing this, told you so. But countries in collapse are what experts call complex cascading systems, with different factors feeding off each other. The models I used have held up to a degree I find astonishing, but the process they describe seems to be accelerating so much faster than I ever imagined. I'd like to take the time to point out that my predictions are closer and more correct. Tucker Carlson's and Alex Jones, even better. The difference between the two sides in the current American election is that the right seems to be aware of the rapid entropy, and the left seems unable or unwilling to acknowledge it. Full stop. He is correct insofar as the voter base, but not the political elites who say Donald Trump is an existential threat to our democracy. I don't understand why he ignores this. Stephen, did you not hear Democrats go on TV every day and say Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy? Did you not see the video of Jamie Raskin saying that they will block Trump if he wins? To be fair, that video only recently surfaced. But this is the blind spot of this man, Stephen Marsh. Heavens to Betsy, Stephen. Come on. He says, the American Democratic elite, a group in which I would include not only political operatives and elected officials, but analysts and media figures, still function as if they are living in the United States of the Obama years. No, they don't. They've been screaming since Donald Trump got elected that he was a spy for Russia. They're still in the West Wing mindset. They believe that politics in a democracy involves consulting policy experts, negotiating consensus through compromise, and finding figures who could embody the consensus in elections. All right, we're going there. I'm going to pull up the article because Stephen Marsh seemingly doesn't know how to use Google. The secret history of the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election. Is this a joke? Stephen, have you not read this article? There was a quote unquote conspiracy unfolding, according to Time magazine, that curtailed protests and coordinated the resistance from CEOs to stop Donald Trump. The AFL-CIO, the U.S. Chamber of Congress, they were not acting like this was just politics as usual. The right knows and understands that many feel that the system is already rotten. And those on the right are using the rotting of the American dream for the everyday men and women to empower themselves. I believe the assassination attempt on Donald Trump was by no means the most important political event that took place last week. When the history of the fall of the American Republic is written, the dismissal of the classified documents case, which many thought would send him to prison, will matter so much more. It's fascinating to read this stuff, I got to be honest, because Joe Biden also had classified documents and Robert Hur refused to prosecute. Stephen, what is wrong? Honestly, honest question. Why can't you acknowledge these things? This is why I say the left is evil, because Stephen Marsh is a learned man. He has researched all of these things. And what we have here is his analysis on the right is 99%, 90% correct. And then he just doesn't write anything about what the left is doing, as if it doesn't exist. I can only conclude he's intentionally omitting this because when the conflict does arise, he wants it to be that the right did it. So yada, yada. He goes on and he makes his points over and over and over again before concluding. He says if the electoral system doesn't represent a popular mandate, if the courts appear to be simply the tools of powerful interests, and if no institutions transcend, how about the courts and Alex Jones? You want to talk about the Supreme Court? Absolutely. Let's talk about the courts destroying the lives of many individuals on partisan grounds. The American people are the most armed society in the developed world. There are more guns than people. The time of American unity is over. It has been for a while. Only one side seems to be aware of it. Unfortunately, the other side will be brought around one way or the other, later rather than sooner. If a civil war does come to America, it will be fully weaponized. But let's do this. Let's assess what we have here with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. To the points that I already brought up, Democrats are not playing politics as usual. Republicans were. Republicans did not realize what Democrats were doing in 2020. Now, don't get me wrong. The right is organized around a populist base that wants to see a changing, a revolution of sorts in our institutions that after 30 or so years have failed the American people. The Democrats want to bolster control in these institutions. It is not one-sided at all. It is absolutely two-sided. You can choose your side, argue one is right and one is wrong, and that's fine. Stephen Marsh says he's a multicultural democracy guy. Well, this country is not a multicultural democracy. It is a constitutional republic with democratic institutions. I do believe our voting system is archaic, but I don't blame the Electoral College. I think the problem is that we've got wonky, out-of-sync voting machines and paper ballots that we don't have a unified voting system that doesn't count ballots properly because it is busted and needs to be realigned, updated in such a way that maybe you're saying it should be paper ballots in boxes. Maybe it should be blockchain voting. Maybe it needs to be non-universal mail-in voting, but I tell you, the system right now that we're using doesn't make sense and needs to be reformed structurally from the bottom up. Don't have the answers for you, but I agree that the system is busted. Well, how about this? Tim Walz says freedom of speech is not guaranteed to Americans in shocking attack on the First Amendment. Let me play the clip for you.
years ago, it was the little things, telling people to vote the day after the election, and we kind of brushed them off. Now we know it's intimidation at the ballot box. It's undermining the idea that mail-in ballots aren't legal. I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy. Tell the truth where the voting places are, who can vote, who's able to be there. And watching some states continue to weaken the protections around the ballot, I think, is what inspiring us to lean into this. Again, all we're asking is to make it as easy and simple as possible to exercise their right to vote and participate in our democracy. And I'm in 100% agreement with you. That makes it so that more people are there. You get more opinions brought in. And I think it tempers that extremes that we get, because, again, I can't imagine someone going and standing in line for 8 hours to try and vote and then being told that, maybe the votes didn't count or maybe something's wrong. Or you have these candidates who lose and are on these ridiculous court cases that they keep bringing up and losing on. Here in Minnesota, we're going to bring faith back into that system. It's already been here. We're very proud that we're near the top in voter turnout, but there's more that we can do.
There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy. It's false. Free speech protects lies. Why? Well, because sometimes it's hard to know if someone's lying or just wrong, and you're allowed to speak your mind even when you are wrong. So it's a challenge because some people are really stupid. But let's just break this down. The idea that voting should be as easy as possible favors the most ignorant individuals who have no knowledge of how to run a system. So if we're talking about running a proper system, voting should be moderately difficult, but still possible for anybody. I don't think this idea of you got to be a landowner to vote makes sense. Certainly it made sense back in the day when there were very few people. Most people who lived in an area were landowners, and they're voting on what's going on in the area where they own land. But now we're talking about people who rent and live in cities and aren't property owners, and they have a say in their community as well. Voting should not be so easy that a mail-in ballot comes in because we can't track the security of these things, and you open up the door for impropriety. Further, I think there's a lot of simple solutions where, you know what? Fine. Keep your mail-in votes. We'll start here. Remove political parties from ballots. That's it. I actually think the solution is this simple. I call for universal mail-in voting for everyone in the country. But guess what? The ballots are blank. It will list the available positions in government that are up for election, and you have to write in the name. Now, don't get me wrong. People are going to say, yeah, but Democrats will just tell them to write in Joe Biden. Sure, they will. And a lot of people won't. And a lot of people who go to vote at the polling stations are going to go, I don't know who to vote for. It's blank. Why do we create this system that allows for individuals to get premium access to ballots, and other people who are write-ins, people struggle to vote for them? It just creates a busted system. I say this, you have to know who you're voting for if you want to vote. That's my solution. But you know what? The goal with Democrats compared to Republicans is Republicans think there's some civic responsibility in voting, and they want to make sure that only the people who live here are voting. And Democrats are like, just let everybody vote. Make it easy to vote so we can hear your opinion. Because Democrats utilize the opinions of those who are not quite smart enough to understand how to operate a machine. I am not going to go to the janitors union to ask them how to, how to extract, say, how to ferment wood and get wood alcohol. Some of them might know, but are we really going to be like, hey, we need to get some wood alcohol? I say we all vote on how to do it. Or are we going to go to the expert? Make it as hard as possible. In which case, for this instance, you have to have some kind of qualification if you are going to vote on the process by which we ferment wood alcohol or something like that. Let's say we want to extract, we want to isolate, I don't know. You get the point. I can think of a million things. You want to develop a nuclear weapon. I mean, look, janitors are important people. I'm not saying disrespect them. I'm saying they shouldn't get to vote on how we build a nuclear bomb. Some things are complicated and difficult to do, and there should be some criteria and qualification for how we run things. With governance, it's a bit difficult because a lot of opinions, and there's not always easy, straightforward answers. And often, it's just really about how you want to live. Some people say you should be allowed to paint your house green. Why? It's ugly. It makes the neighborhood look ugly. I don't like it. And some people say I can paint my house however I want. Okay, well, that's not really an issue of life or death. It's just opinion on what people like aesthetically. So, okay, anybody can vote on that. But if we're talking about what the paint's allowed to be made of, one person says radium, so it glows green. You might be like, there's going to be an issue with radiation if we do that. How about we let experts, we make it a bit more difficult to vote on that. You have to have some kind of expertise. This is where we currently are, my friends. It only gets worse. Michigan Secretary of State says neighbors should snitch on each other to combat election misinformation. That's right, because these people don't believe in free speech. And should they win and enact communist communist Chinese-style governance, then you are going to know for sure what it means when you can't speak. Tim Walz's COVID hotline could become point of attack for Trump. Under Walz, Minnesota had a hotline to report social distancing violations. Welcome to the Communist Party. This is how they live. 15 or so years ago, I had a family member trying to make money. Extended family member on Facebook said, check out this service. All you have to do is go around and writing down the license plate numbers of cars on your street and upload them and your address, and they'll pay you $50. Yeah, it's like for every certain amount of license plate numbers you write down, they pay you cash. And then I said, you're telling people to create a mass spying snitch network? And then this family member deleted the post. Whoops. Yeah. Imagine that. Snitching on your neighbor. Because the issue was people might be looking for a car with a certain license plate, either repossession or crimes or something. And let's let everyone know where everyone currently is for money. That's the world they want to live in. Take a look at this report from Jesse Waters. Tim Walz visited China 30 times. After his first trip, he spread Chinese propaganda. Walz got married on the anniversary of Tiananmen Square because he wanted to remember the date. For his honeymoon, he went back to China and he took his high school students with him. He started a travel company that would send them to China with a bunch of American students every year, and his trips were funded by the Chinese government. He spent so much time in China that he learned the language. Wow. Let me play the clip from Jesse Waters for you.
We're learning a lot more about Tim Walz's Chinese connections. Last night, we told you he's visited China 30 times over the last few decades. He went to China for the first time in '89 through a government program sponsored by Harvard. And when he came back, he spread Chinese propaganda. Quote, I was treated exceptionally well. They are such kind, generous, capable people, and they just gave and gave and gave to me. Going there was one of the best things I've ever done. Walz loved his time in China so much he got married on the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre because he always wanted to remember the date. For his honeymoon, he went back to China and he took his high school students with him, which would usually cramp your style on a honeymoon, but to each his own. He started a travel company that would send him to China with a bunch of American students every year, and his trips were funded by the Chinese government. Local Chinese kids knew Walz. They called him the big-nosed one and foreign devil. But Walz swears those weren't insults. He loves it when little Chinese boys make fun of him. He spent so much time in China, he learned the language. Listen.
Niman Hama, Governor Tim Walz here. Happy Chinese New Year. This spring festival is a time to welcome and celebrate the new year with a smile and let the fortune and happiness continue. Please remember to practice social distancing and wear a mask as you celebrate. Hey, Fatsoi.
Walz
I don't know that he actually speaks Mandarin.
still has deep connections to the Chinese. In 2019, he delivered a keynote address to the Chinese Friendship Organization, a group with deep ties to Chinese intel. Did the Harris campaign know about this? How can a guy visit China 30 times and pal around with Chi-Coms and have Chinese money change hands, and you say to yourself, I want that guy in the Situation Room with me? This is the second time in a row Democrats have tried to install a guy with China ties inside the White House. And the media isn't digging into this because just like with the China virus, they're afraid of being called racist.
Sure, maybe, or they support it. Political elites want communist Chinese-style governance because, as the saying goes, there's the story where American politicians met with China and they reveled in how the Chinese communists were able to decimate a city block of residential homes, kick the people out and leave them destitute so they could build a highway. Oh, man. And the U.S. tried to build a highway. And so what happens is these politicians are like, we have a serious crisis. We need this highway here to alleviate pressure, lots of problems. Everyone's pissed off, but we can't because these people own homes in the way. And if you want to seize them through eminent domain, it's a long legal process. They don't want to sell. Ugh. Why can't we just crush them under authoritarianism like the Chinese communists do? And so that's what they want. Well, here we are. American Stasi. Tulsi Gabbard confirms Quiet Sky's nightmare. Placed on a terror watch list, the former Hawaii congresswoman and her husband were tailed by air marshals and bomb dogs. Unconstitutional on every level, she says, and I'm not the only one. It's happening now, under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So to go back to the beginning, the question of civil war. Stephen Marsh, I believe, intentionally ignores what the left does. Intentionally ignores and acts like they're bumbling buffoons, exacerbating the crisis. I don't know what to tell you. Under Donald Trump, we did not get the Insurrection Act. We did not see the mass firing of all these staff members. Under Donald Trump, we had a marginally good presidency. Why should we expect the psychotic vision of the far left, this delusional paranoid state? We shouldn't. There's no evidence for it. But I can tell you this, Tim Walz has strange connections to China. Kamala Harris and Walz have no policy positions. Their base still wants to support them without any policy positions because it's ideological and negative partisanship. Negative partisanship, which is a great point made by Stephen Marsh, is that Democrats just hate Republicans. But as the saying goes, Republicans think Democrats are misguided. Democrats think Republicans are evil. And that is what's driving everything. I'll wrap it up there, my friends. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Stick around. The next segment will be coming up at 4 p.m. on this channel for everybody who's watching live. Stay tuned. I'm going to read your super chats, and we'll see you all, the rest of you, at 4 p.m. Let's grab some more super chats, my friends. Tiananmen Timmy Waltz. That's not a bad one. All right. Bruce says, my conspiracy theory, they're going to use Waltz for the early vote to get the far lefties and swap him out for Shapiro to get a bounce. And the Jewish vote, I don't see how this VP pick helps them at all. Young people don't vote early. Maybe they go to college students and say, fill out your universal mail-in ballot, take them. And then in the 11th hour, bring in Shapiro. So the older people who vote in person, that could make sense. The next story we're lining up for you guys is MrBeast. It's getting bad. New accusations, child abuse. Oof, it's getting real crazy here. A leaked email. It's not just about MrBeast. It's about how DEI policies are reinforced by their own failures. You wonder why it is that predators are allowed to work at these companies? Because DEI law and policy and insurance companies make sure they're protected. We'll grab some super chats, though. Halo News says, Tim, what if there was an incel revolution? This what if idea came from a video I saw from a YouTuber called What If All History. He's a very interesting guy, talk about modern society and try to understand by using history, and he's a smart guy. And he's not wrong in this asking this question. An incel revolution it's not so much an incel revolution, it's that angry young men with no purpose and no prospects for life will seek out revolution. So I tell you this is why I don't see the left having a chance at a good victory, to be honest. The angry young men, they want lives and they want wives. And that's why they're leaning towards Donald Trump. If a conflict were to erupt, the young men who would be doing the fighting are going to want to envision a world in which they can have a white picket fence and a family. The young women who support the Democrats and the leftist side aren't going to have that on their side. Let's go. Bruce with the Deuce says, if we just take the bait, talking about all Dems all day instead of the attempt on Donald Trump, we lose their game. Their government spying always keeps them a step ahead. You know, someone tried to kill Trump not even a month ago. This should be the biggest story for the rest of the year. An assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Tiny Timmy. Is that what it says? Tiny Tim, y'all. If my info was used to donate to $500,000 to Act Blue, does that mean I can write those charitable donations off of my taxes? You'll go to prison if you do, because you'll be acknowledging or at least presenting some kind of evidence that you are deeply involved in the illegal contributions that you made. So you're probably better off reporting it. Everyone should check the fec.gov website and their names to see the donations they made. And I'll do that right now. I'm going to go to fec.gov and see if I can do a campaign finance data. Let's do a donation search. How do you do that? Let's see. Help for candidates, resources, and legal. Let's do FEC donation records. We'll Google that. And individual contribution, candidate recording receipts, donor lookup. Ooh, that's interesting. Individual contributions. There's a way on the website to maybe it's not FEC that does this. Let me do this. How do you look up campaign donations? Donor lookup on Open Secrets. Is this what it is? Open Secrets has it. Let's do Timothy D. Pool and search. No results found. Well, that didn't work. Why not? Maybe just Timothy Pool. Here we go. Oof, there's a lot of them. Let's see. Ooh, this is interesting. I'm going to pull this one up. This is all public record. So just, so you guys know. You got a Timothy Pool from the Times Printing Corporation. Republican. Look at that. Same money to parties, money to candidates. This Timothy Pool made a lot of donations. Hey, here you go. So here's a Timothy Pool Woodbury. That's me. Timcast Media Group donated the max to Michelle Caruso Cabrera. Indeed, I did. A Democrat who was running against AOC. Andrew Yang, Agatha Basilar. Yep, all those that I did back in 2020. Agatha Basilar was running against Nancy Pelosi. She was an independent. Look at that. I was helping support. She's a progressive though. But I was in 2019. Andrew Yang. Look at that. Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang. We gave them some money. Give them money. Lily Tang Williams. Look at that. Back in Harper's Ferry. Carolyn Levitt. Look at that. I gave her money too. And the Forward Party. I gave money to the Forward Party. How about that? That was to support Andrew Yang back in 2021. I like the idea of introducing new ideas to challenge the machine. So you can look all this stuff up. Open Secrets has everybody in there. And I recommend you check those numbers. Oh, man, is this... Oh, that's the next one we're pulling up. The Twerking Olympian. I recommend you check your numbers, see if anyone's doing any of this in your name as well. All right. Drifter says, hey, Tim, for guests over video call, want to tell you about Kirsha Verstal. She's been trying to talk about Bridge, a new form of DEI. She's having a hard time being taken seriously because she's a VTuber. I'm not going to bring on a VTuber. I don't know. All right. Let's see. Wait. Hold on. What is this? Someone says, Tacti Play says Youngkin and VA went to paper ballots. So if VA is doing all paper ballots, don't be surprised if Republicans win everything. All right. We just, I had one. We had some super chats, but it just jumped up. It's what YouTube does. Oregoni says YouTube unsubbed me. I resubbed manually again. Yikes. All right. Where did wow, a lot of super chats. So I had super chats pulled up and then just erased them all. All right. Stephanie Hull says, can Trump win if Texas flips? HAVV shows their hand. COVID migration will be their reason. No way to prove either way. Yep. There you go. Good luck. That's why I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, man, but I am not so confident. All right. What have we here? Christopher Even says, I was wondering what you thought of Musk's latest lawsuit against the advertisement cartels. It'll be interesting. The argument is that these companies have a right to choose where they vote when they want to, but if it is an illegal trust, then you've got an issue. Basically, that by forming this cartel, they've formed an illegal monopoly controlling advertising. Could be interesting. All right, my friends, let us talk of MrBeast. This story, I think, is actually really important. From Deseret.com, accusations of unprofessional handling and mistreatment of contestants on Beast Games come to light. It's just getting worse and worse for old Jimmy, MrBeast. We have this from Rolling Stone. Ava Chris Tyson used me. Former MrBeast collaborator accused of sexual misconduct, from August 7th. We have MrBeast from Business Insider. The internet's love affair with YouTube's biggest star is showing cracks. Heaven help me. We have this from Drama Alert. Former MrBeast employee claims a registered sex offender worked as a manager for MrBeast's company. Do you believe these allegations? Now, many people say, well, who cares about MrBeast? Why do we care about any of these controversies? Well, one big reason. YouTube props MrBeast up. displaying people like Ava Tyson, who's been accused of grooming and sexual misconduct now, deeply serious allegations, to which Jimmy himself, MrBeast, said he's seen enough. He had fired this individual, terminated them, or removed them, or whatever he said. That's how bad it was. This guy was being shown to children and defended. Jimmy was going on X and saying, leave my friend alone, when Chris Tyson was sending allegedly sexual content, pornography to minors, to children, masquerading as a woman, while also being accused of abusing another male, trans woman. This story's absolutely insane. So here's how I said it. Jimmy, your friend needed an intervention, and instead you affirmed the crisis, and this is what you get. And that's the first big reason. The second is the leaked email. MrBeast internal email leaked. Now, I don't know. He says confirmed real, but this is the real story before we get into the conflict and the crisis. All of these different controversies arising with MrBeast. And the real story is this email. Why? When Chris Tyson is allegedly sending porn and other deviant, degenerate material, illegal content, enticing children, and Jimmy is defending him. Why? Because he has to. Because under the law in which they operate, they've got these policies that they have to follow. In the email, they basically say they are redoubling those same policies. That is, when Chris Tyson came out and said that their alleged degenerate behaviors was just part of an identity issue that you are legally required to protect, MrBeast said, okay, and defended it. Instead of challenging it, instead of providing an intervention for this individual, the law required, his insurance probably required, that I just defend what Chris Tyson was doing. So now Jimmy, in response, has issued an email to his company saying, we're going to do all of it all over again. In response to what happened with Chris Tyson, he's now saying these diversity policies will be reinforced, re-educated. But guess what? Those are the policies that protected Chris Tyson as he allegedly enticed minors and sexually abused another individual because he was legally protected. One employee claimed that they wanted to do something about it, but they couldn't for legal reasons. Tyson would sue the MrBeast company. So what could they do? This is the cycle. Here's the email. From Jimmy, it says, Dear Team Beast, I wanted to update all of you on the recent concerns that have been raised online and in the press. As I mentioned in my tweet a couple of weeks ago, let me see, is there a date on this? There's no date on this. We have hired Quinn Emanuel, a top-tier law firm, to do a full investigation of the Ava Tyson allegations. We also asked them to expand the scope to include a full assessment of our internal culture and to investigate allegations of inappropriate behavior by people in the company. While the process is not complete, I have enough preliminary information at this point that I'm announcing several changes today. As your leader, I take responsibility, and I'm committed to continue to improve and evolve my leadership style. While I've been mostly focused on creating content, launching Feastables, building our community, and leading our philanthropic efforts, I recognize that I also need to create a culture that makes all of our employees feel safe and allows them to do their best work. Therefore, along with Jeff Hausenbold, our new president and COO, we will be hiring a new chief human resource officers, chief financial officer, and general counsel, along with other roles to add capacity and competencies to foster a better internal culture as we continue to grow. To start off, we'll be instituting hiring a new a chief human resources officer. We will be bringing in seasoned leader to help us build more inclusive environment and a world-class HR team. Mandatory training. You ready for this one? We are implementing mandatory training sessions on safety, sexual harassment, LGBTQ, diversity, sensitivity training, and workplace conduct for all employees. It is those same policies that led to the protection of Ava Tyson, who is alleged to have enticed and groomed children and to have sexually abused another individual who I believe worked for Tyson. They're now saying harassment and LGBTQ diversity, all that's going to be reinforced. So when Tyson was coming out and publicly saying these things, according to one of the employees, they couldn't fire Tyson because of Tyson being trans and being diverse and making claims against the company. They're now reinforcing it. It's the downward death spiral. It's where we go. Many people have pointed out that the obvious end result of what we are seeing with all of this weird DEI stuff is it's the result of the Civil Rights Act. The Civil Rights Act says you can't discriminate against people, just live your lives. What it's supposed to mean is that if you're white, black, man or woman, religious, whatever, you're fine. But one by one, they add new things. The Supreme Court says that gender identity is a protected class because sex means identity. It doesn't. But this basically means that men can dress up like women to go in the women's bathroom now if they have ill intent. Not all of them do. I don't think most trans women have ill intent to do so. But there are questions now about having males going into female spaces. There's a reason why we segregate. There's a reason why we segregate the sexes. The argument from the left is that gender segregation is just as bad as racial segregation, which is ridiculous. And for those, you really want the logic behind it? Because I'll give you the logic. The idea that because of a color's skin color, you are better or worse off and shouldn't have the same space makes literally no sense. But men and women are different. It doesn't matter what nationality, ethnicity, race, where you come from. Men and women are different. Men will have higher bone density and more muscle mass. Women will have less skin collagen, wider hips, wider Q angle, all of these things. And for that, universally, we're like, men and women are different and they want separate spaces. Many women want to be in a space when they're doing their business away from men. Men seem to care a lot less, but women tend to care a lot more, and that's universal. In fact, in the Middle East, they take it way more seriously. Absolutely. Women are covered up and not allowed to be in certain places. Not that I agree with that. But the idea that, a guy from Haiti and a guy from Nigeria are going to be the same and should be segregated based on the color of their skin makes literally no sense. Someone from Somalia is going to be shorter than someone from Nigeria. There's no universal distinction other than the color of their skin. So skin color and race don't seem to make sense for segregation. The argument the left makes is meaningless. It doesn't make sense. So racial segregation, of course, is wrong, but sex segregation in bathrooms and sports and medicine makes a lot of sense. Here's another one for you. In the early 1990s, they passed a law in the United States that said clinical trials had to be done on men and women separately. Why? For a long time, doctors were like, we gave the painkiller to the woman, but she's still complaining. Women. The reality was certain painkillers didn't work on women in the same way. Surprise, surprise. Men and women have different biology. So women were suffering in these medical environments, not getting proper painkillers. And the doctors were just like, I gave you painkillers. Why are you mad? Or they may give them more, resulting in potential liver damage or who knows what. And they realized, we need to give different painkillers to different people. Men and women are different. But here we are. They're saying listening sessions. Jeff will be holding listening sessions across the company to hear directly from employees about their experience and ideas for improvement. All you're going to get is squeaky wheels to men in the grease. Anonymous reporting, external review. I want you to know that I'm optimistic about the company's future. Are you now? Well, here we go. Oh, I got the wrong one pulled up again. Really? Where was the, did I really pull up the wrong one right there? Where's the MrBeast? There we go. Oh, I see what happened. It switched. I switched on me. So the contestants of the Beast Games, accusation of unprofessional handling and mistreatment. Really? Jimmy Donaldson, his YouTube channel famous for blah, 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 new accusations. A recent New York Times report provides additional details on the situation from anonymous contestants due to NDAs sharing their experience in the game show. They say for many contestants, they found it was the poor set conditions rather than the challenges themselves. We signed up for the show, but we didn't sign up for not being fed or watered or treated like human beings. Initially, contestants were told there would be 1,000 participants. They were surprised to find 2,000. Obviously, there's 2,000 contestants, Donaldson said in a video to participants reviewed by the New York Times. I don't remember if I said that publicly or not, but there is. The starting number of contestants would be whittled down until there was 1,000 left. We were treated horribly. They took on this challenge of 2,000 competitors. They should have known they needed an enormous crew to handle this correctly. How about this one, the more serious allegations? Rolling Stone says Tyson, who is under third-party workplace investigation, is being accused of sending inappropriate messages and pressuring a former employee into sexual acts. And why couldn't they deal with this? Well, apparently, one employee said, as I already mentioned, that they couldn't take any action against him because they'd be sued. Let me see if we can pull up this story real quick. See if there's any additional details that we're not getting. Here we go. We have the story from Rolling Stone. Ava Chris Tyson stepped down from her role working with MrBeast. I think at this point, actually, let's read. The inappropriate nature of the conversations, though mostly juvenile, shocked the MrBeast community, especially in the wake of larger conversations about how the creators and young stars should act. They say many on social media claimed there was evidence of grooming. Lava quickly came out to defend Tyson, saying they were just edgy jokes. However, Lava's story was just the beginning. In fact, later on, Lava announced, actually, you're right. They were more than just jokes. They had an entire porn section on their server, allegedly. I haven't seen their server, but these images have come out. They go on to mention the following day on July 27th, a woman named Jess, who was Tyson's executive assistant, posted over 60-part thread on X sharing her detailed experience with Tyson, who she claims used the position within MrBeast to entice her with employment, leading to her being sexually assaulted while working. This woman, by the way, is a trans woman who I believe is a trans woman who met up with Chris Tyson, and Chris Tyson then offered, hey, we'll put you on the show and things like this. I believe that's what the thread was saying. And then just, wanted to get taken care of, if you know what I mean. They go to mention that Rolling Stone spoke with Wyman and Jess, blah, blah, blah. Rolling Stone contacted Tyson over Instagram, X, email, and phone. Tyson and the reporter spoke for about 2 minutes over the phone before she said she would call him back later. The reporter's number was blocked, and she didn't reply to an email with a detailed list of questions and allegations. I believe that Tyson will go to jail. And this matters. A lot of people don't care about MrBeast, whatever. Dude, this is the biggest YouTuber. Okay? This stuff is being sent to children. This is something that matters culturally. Which would you rather have? The biggest YouTube channel being family-friendly sporting events and comedy with a wholesome creator who doesn't abuse children or have staff doing so? Or MrBeast, who protected and defended Tyson, is exacerbating the problems, has been accused of mistreating the people, the contestants on his show, and he does. This is my problem with MrBeast. I can respect he's got a big show. I can respect he tries to do nice things. But when I see these videos and it's like taking poor people and I hate it. I'm sorry. I just hate it. Here's what I like. Make a video where and MrBeast has done this, I'm pretty sure, where you leave a tip for $1,000 for an employee and film their reaction. Fine. You're exploiting the reaction of someone who's receiving a gift, but everybody wins in the end, right? You'll get 1 million views, you win. There have been fake videos in the past where people stage giving homeless people money. I roll. What I don't like is how MrBeast goes, we got 100 people, we promised them $1 million if they, do strange task. And these people are like, I got to pay off my debt. My mom's sick and, she needs help. Taking poor people who need money, because everybody does, and then using them for entertainment to engage in behaviors that are demeaning, I think is sick. Not a fan. You can call it a game show or whatever, but nah. A game show is not taking poor people who are in desperate need of money and then exploiting them intentionally with demeaning acts. A game show is like spin the wheel and maybe you'll win a car. That's fine. Everybody could use a new car, I suppose. Not everybody, but some people. That's why I've never been a big fan of this guy. And now that we're hearing more and more of this, but most importantly, that MrBeast protected Chris Tyson until it was too late, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. This stuff needs to be called out. YouTube should not be propping this stuff up and protecting these people, but surprise, surprise, they're going to. I'm going to wrap it up there. The next segment will be coming up in just a little bit. I believe I have, we've got right here. OnlyFans athlete Alicia Newman causes controversy by twerking to celebrate medal. An OnlyFans athlete who won and is a hooker. Well, that's what we'll be talking about in the next segment. So smash that like button. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. I hope I offended at least some of you by calling her the hooker. But we'll talk about this. We're going to talk about what this means because they talk about how much money she makes selling pictures of her body to men who are trying to get off. The next segment will be coming up at 6 p.m. on this channel. Thank you for hanging out. And for everybody else watching live, we'll go to Super Chats now. Let's grab some of your Super Chats before we talk about the degeneracy of OnlyFans and the hookers. Adrian Contreras says, Tim, the problem is there are too many people not paying attention. Look at California. There are so many people that vote to make our lives worse here. They are so warped, they don't even vote to save themselves. And that's why voting should be harder. Because people who don't care and are too stupid should not be voting. I think so. Let's go. Rob says, calling for Walz to resign may be a mistake, as they could just jump right or on Shapiro if Walz does resign. Just expose him through ads and podcasts, focus on policies and the truth. Maybe. I don't think he would resign, though, and I think it would be kind of a shocking thing. But, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Dookie J. Newcomb says, predict it may be compromised by a flood of bot accounts. Betting for Kamala and not for Trump. This all happened the same day Obama endorsed her. Consider that going forward. If that's true, then anybody would just make a bet on Trump and you get free money from the bots. All right. Theron Net says, Tim, get into contact with Matt Tario from the Speak the Truth podcast. He and the Green Beret community have dug up damning information on Walz. Interesting. Let's jump down and grab some quick super chats before we jump into the final segment, my friends. All right, let's see. Bentelligent says, Mike Lindell fights the HAVA fraud with election expert Dr. Frank. His new July presentation from Pasadena is pinned on my X. Bentelligent76, get doctor on IRL to train people to stop the steal. And don't forget, my friends, go to mypillow.com/Tim. We got our own promo code. Mike Lindell's great. Here's a guy who, he's got everything, right? Multi-millionaire, the number one product in all these box stores. He believes in Donald Trump. He sees what's going on in these elections. And so he put everything on the line and destroyed himself, sacrificing so much to try and do the right thing. And they went after him for everything. And so I'm glad to see that MyPillow is turning around. They've got more products. I hope he regains what was lost for great personal sacrifice. He's a good dude. He's a nice guy. All right, we'll grab some more super chats here. Stuart Votzberger says, how many American governors are working for China exactly? Noticing a weird connection between Dems and China. Weird. Yep. I gotta say. Things are strange. All right. Souls G says, used Open Secrets advanced search for donor lookup. The only criteria entered was not employed or employer of donor search box. Interesting results. A lot of unemployed people making those donations, huh? All right. Kuman says, interesting how this comes out when Jimmy mentions running for president. I don't know. He can't run for president for 10 years. So, I don't know about that. Let's jump to this last segment, my friends. From the Telegraph. That's right. OnlyFans Olympic star causing controversy by twerking after she wins and then selling photos of her body. Dude, degeneracy. I'm not a fan. But you know what? I'm fairly libertarian. So, lady, Alicia, you want to be a hooker? I got no beef. I'll just call you a hooker and point it out. Now, of course, all of these OnlyFans hookers get real mad when I call them hookers. What's a hooker? When I was growing up, we just referred to women who sold sex in any way as a hooker. It's a slang term. What is a prostitute? Someone who engages in sexual acts for money. Now, by all means, back in the day, when you didn't have TV and magazines and things like that, you had drawings, I guess. But prostitutes and brothels would perform the act for the men. But not everything they're paid to do is, a woman servicing a guy, right? Or vice versa. What I mean is, there's gigolos. But what I mean is sometimes guys hire women to do things to other women or themselves. Would you call that prostitution? Yes. Are they hookers? They are. In today's digital day and age, women selling scantily clad photos with the express intention of allowing men to pleasure themselves are hookers. They know what they're doing and why they're doing it, and they're asking for money. Now, in reality, if a woman posed in a bathing suit for Sports Illustrated, that's not a hooker. Like, women are allowed to wear bathing suits. They're allowed to wear whatever they want. This is a woman, an Olympic athlete, who twerked and laughed and enjoyed it. And she sells photos of her body in suggestive poses for money. Now, I don't know exactly how much she makes. I think they estimate that she may be making, it depends. They say there's 65,000 likes on her profile. The question is, will you get more likes than subscribers? So maybe she has 10% of that. Maybe she's getting around 30 to 40,000 bucks a month by posting scantily clad photos of her body to pleasure men. I call that being a hooker. Here's the story. Telegraph, OnlyFans Alicia Newman causes controversy by twerking to celebrate medal. Canadian pole vaulter performed the risque celebration after claiming bronze on Wednesday. They said the Canadian pole vaulter had broken her national record by clearing 4.85 meters in a hotly contested final on Wednesday night, becoming the first Canadian woman to win a medal in the event in Olympic history. But her risque celebration, shaking her posterior towards the crowds and watching TV cameras, will doubtless have been intended to help boost growing revenues for her adult-only OnlyFans site. Charging £10 a month, the 30-year-old's earnings are expected to soar after her success in Paris. That's called being a hooker. But social media users were divided on her celebration, with many accusing her of attention-seeking, while others defended her celebration as enjoying a historic moment. Newman from Delaware, Ontario, in Canada, cleared the same height as rival Katie Moon, but the American missed fewer attempts to land silver. The American missed fewer attempts? What is that? I think they worded that wrong. Here's her doing that pole vault. And you know what? I can respect that she's a great athlete and she did this, but I do not respect that she is selling sex at the Olympics to make money, and she makes way more money doing that. A host of athletes have been using the raunchy online platform to fund their Olympic dreams. Jack Laffer, who claimed bronze for Great Britain in the men's synchronized 3mm springboard, previously told the Telegraph Sport how he was part of a growing group to sell images on the site. Yes, I try and make extra money. Obviously, I've got something people want, and I'll happily cash in on that. I'm a bit of a hustler, and I want a bit more money if I can. I don't know if we'd call him a hooker, maybe a gigolo. I don't know. We'll call him a male hooker. All the same, a degenerate in my opinion. Noah Williams, who partnered with Tom Daley in the 10-meter synchronized platform at the Paris Olympics, is another diver who posts on the site. Now, to be fair, if what they're saying, the fully clothed photograph, if these guys are doing what these women are doing, it's hooking. Okay? Look, posing in a bikini in a suggestive pose, not the end of the world. Okay? Some of these photos are intentionally sexually suggestive, like this photo here. I think we know the reason for her posing this way up against a wall and looking down at the camera. Her walking out of the water on a ladder. It's like, women wear bathing suits. Her laying down and posing. It is scantily clad photographs, and we know the intention of the photographs are to titillate men. But I would say to a greater degree, I'm more forgiving of this because women are allowed to wear bikinis. But, the sticking her butt out while pulling her underwear up into her butt crack, and twerking on camera, hooker. This, hooking, shaking your butt on camera for whatever reason when she sells sex, that's why I call her a hooker. I don't. To be fair, you can call her a low-tier hooker. You can say that she's like not the worst of hookers. You can say that OnlyFans models who do this are like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst hooker, they're a 1. Still hookers, in my opinion. They are selling sex for money. Things like this, I just view it all the same. Okay. You want to post a photo of you doing a pole vault. She's wearing a bikini and stuff. I think that's fine. Selling these photos is where you start to get into weird territory. But when she does the ones, and I will stress, where she is intentionally being sexually suggestive with her underwear hiked up and her butt sticking out, sorry, that's the line. You're a hooker. Now, what I think is the bigger picture here is not just to call out this one person for being a hooker. It's the effect of social media in general on what's happening in our society. Expanding degeneracy, but probably also ending, in my opinion, women in the workplace. You've got many women who are going to stop working because they can just be hookers online. Men will pay them. It's fascinating to see how quickly so many women choose this as their place to become sex objects for men for money. The man's going to do work like, most guys, lift bricks and do construction or some manual labor. They're then going to give portions of their proceeds to women who shake their butts on camera for them. That's nature, I guess. It's funny how quickly women who are teachers and police officers and doctors quit so that they can shake their butts on camera for men because they prefer to do that. It's interesting. I, as a guy, I get a dopamine release when I accomplish goals. There's a thing I'm trying to do. I do it. It feels good. That's why video games are so popular. I'm skateboarding. I say, I want to land this trick. I land it. And I'm like, wow, I feel great. Yeah. And there are women who are like, I would rather shake my butt on camera for guys. And that's what these women do. I guess they feel better doing it. She seems to be very happy shaking her butt on camera at the Olympics. Good for her. But all in all, the effect of social media on society, I think, it's a mixed bag, I got to tell you. I'm a plastic surgeon. Here are the enhancements I think Sabrina Carpenter has had. Another story. Here's a normal looking young woman, and now she looks disgusting. And I wonder why it is that women do this. These women who get plastic surgery look gross. That's just me, I guess. Maybe y'all are different. But considering the memes about Erin Moriarty, who's on The Boys, pretty sure everybody agrees the plastic surgery is making these women look disgusting. There have been photoshops of Erin Moriarty to make her look even more gross, intentionally, and they've gone viral. The buccal fat removal stuff is the creepiest thing ever. These people look disgusting. I'm going to say it again. These women are going on social media and they're just trying to look like other women on social media. They're effectively turning themselves into like mannequin blow-up doll looking things. It's gross. You look at the picture on the left and it's a normal face. And guys like normal faces. And you look at the picture on the right and she looks plastic with fillers and weird surgeries. Plastic surgery. Plastic surgeons suggest the stars had a rhinoplasty and filler in the cheeks and lips. Now, why are they doing this? Well, you can go to plasticsurgery.org. They outright say TikTok has had contributed to the specialty of plastic surgery and procedural trends. There are a few key ways that we can see a direct impact. Plastic surgeons can note changes in public perception around social media, see shifts in demographics, and note particular procedures that are trending. Women are going online and they're looking at other women and saying, I want to look like that. They're looking at filters and saying, I want to look like that. And it's resulting in, women looking very, very weird. Sabrina Carpenter is 25. Why did she get plastic surgery? Because now she looks older and fake. You got this one. It says, surgeon says botched filler makes Jennifer Aniston look tired and aged. You're better off just being your age. But everybody's getting plastic surgery. And that is weird and creepy. Then and now. How insane is this? That they are doing this themselves. You know, plastic surgeon explains Kristen Wiig's age-defying facial transformation at age 50. I think it's all gross. I think it's all gross. You can tell when people get plastic surgery, they don't look younger. They just look like they got plastic surgery. So it is sad to see the influence of social media. Maybe there are people that are happy, I guess, that these women who were previously police officers, they think shouldn't have been. It's a wild scenario. Think about it. There's stories about women, a woman who was a cop. She started an OnlyFans, quit being a cop because she made more money selling pictures of her naked body and other creepy things to guys. There's probably a lot of guys who are like, it's better that women aren't cops because women can't handle the job. So with the internet, you get what you get. It's funny because in the Scandinavian countries, studies have found that with more equal opportunity, you get a higher prevalence of gender segregation. Meaning, in these countries that are very feminist, women are choosing more and more to take on traditionally feminine roles and jobs. How about that one? Well, I'll wrap it up there with this segment, and then we'll jump over to Super Chats. It is what it is. If the Olympic athlete wants to be a hooker, she can be. Whatever. I'm fairly libertarian. But I love when they're like, how dare you call me a hooker? And there's nothing wrong with being a hooker, but how dare you call me a hooker? If there's nothing wrong with it, then who cares? Why are you mad? You're selling pictures of your body so dudes can get off, and they pay you money to do it. I don't know. You do your thing. Let me ask you, if this woman, this Olympic athlete, got a call from a guy and he's like, I want you to come into my bedroom, hike up your underwear into your butt crack, press yourself up against the wall and stick your butt out for me so I can do a dirty deed. Are you going to call that that's hooking? Okay. That's what they're doing. Just because it's over the internet doesn't change anything, but they're also offended by it. Get out of here. All right. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, head over to Timcast.com, become a member. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. We'll be back tonight at 8 p.m. with youtube.com/TimcastIRL. And for everybody still watching live, we will now go to your Super Chats. Let's grab some of what you guys got to say. All right. Warpig says, I laugh at all the simps defending the Olympics chick. Well, I'll defend her. She's allowed to be a hooker and twerk if she wants. That's fine. Whatever. But I'm going to call her a hooker. I don't know. They're like, don't call her that. They're a hooker. Check it out of here. I'd say she wasn't allowed to do it. Why are you offended? Warpig says, look how many of them I pissed off. Haha, simp fools everywhere. Why is it offensive to be called a hooker if you're selling pictures of your scantily clad body so that guys could crank it so you get paid? Like, I'm going to say it again. If a woman if that Olympic athlete showed up to a guy's hotel room and he paid her money so she could pull her underwear into her butt crack and shake her butt in front of him, and then that's a hooker. Come on. It's so stupid. There was that other woman that got mad that I called her a hooker. She's got photos of herself up against the wall, sticking her butt out. I'm like, if you hired her to come into your bedroom to do that, okay, you call that being a hooker. I wonder, though, if you get arrested for that. That's an interesting question. Like, where's the legal line? MF Damien says, what's she trying to shake? That scrawny tailbone? Sad. There you go. Nick C says, hey, Tim, yoked Nick here from Fitcast IRL. Our community loves Timcast, but to be part of Fitcast IRL, you don't have to be an OnlyFans hooker. We accept everyone, whether you twerk, weightlift, skateboard, etc. Shout out. I hope everybody is getting fit and getting in shape in time for this election so that everybody can flex and be very strong. How fun. Mike Radke says, rhinoplasty. My truck has rhino liner in the bed. Warpig says, so many angry simps in the chat. Keep up the good work, Tim. She's a hooker. You know what I mean? Are people really mad that she's a hooker? Someone who engages in sexual activity for money. And the idea is because it's online, it doesn't count? Get out of here. No, if you want to argue, there's got to be physical contact. Okay, so I ask you this question again. If you were in Vegas and a woman got hired to go into the room with another one, because some of these women on OnlyFans they'll like hug other women. And they're like, I'm not doing anything sexual. That's not a hooking, you know. It's like, dude, come on. If you hire two women to like hug and pull their underwear into their butt cracks and shake their butts at you so that you can get titillated, like that's hooking. That's like no one's going to believe otherwise. And you're engaging in sexual acts to titillate men for money. I think the issue is they just don't want to accept it. They know it's degenerate. They're offended by the fact that they do these things. They're offended by it's shame. It's really what it is. My friends, if you like what she's doing, then feel no shame. Say, yeah, it's fine. Everybody, wants to find somebody. Human beings enjoy these things. That's how humans are made, right? And if you enjoy it, just admit it. You are paying a woman to titillate you for money. That's a hooker. You know, if you didn't pay her and she did it for free, you can call that your friend. That's what I always find so funny. The joke loophole where the guy drives up to the hooker on the street and then he says, hey, ma'am. And she's like, you want to party? And then he's like, sure. And she's like, $50. It's like, well, hold on. You go to jail if you accept that, right? So the guy says, no partying. I'm just trying to meet nice women because I really want a girlfriend. Don't worry. If you're my girlfriend, I'll take care of you. That's the joke. I can't remember. It was like in a movie or something where a guy is like, he tells the hooker to, no, none of that, but get in my car and I'll take you out for dinner and I'll give you some money anyway. And then he's like, you're going to be my girlfriend. We're going to date from now on. And I expect things from my girlfriend, but don't worry, I take care of my girlfriend. And then it's like if he were to be charged, he'd be like, I asked her to be my girlfriend. I'm allowed to give my girlfriend money whenever I want. I'm allowed. I got her information. And it's like, how do you really differentiate that? That's the nature of reality. The old joke was that hooking is just the natural state, they say, because men do work to provide for women and men want companionship. The difference, I suppose, is when you don't know the woman, you know. But let's be real. If you hire a woman to titillate you and she does sexually suggestive things in whatever capacity, you're hiring someone to perform a sexual act for you for your self-gratification. Come on. Nick C says, Tim, please say titillate in the Trump voice. So these women, I call them hookers. They're because they are. Let's be honest. They titillate men, make them feel good, but not too good because they have to spend more. And if you make them feel too good, then they're going to want to date you, and the girls don't want that. I intentionally turned the Trump voice into a caricature, though, so forgive me. Titillate. And that's the Trump rally voice, because he doesn't talk like that when he's in interviews. You know, quite frankly, he talks more like this. And, quite honestly, but I think my Trump impersonation's got a little weaker. I got to brush it back up. There was a period where we were doing it, Seamus and I were doing it quite a bit. All right, we'll grab one more. Stuart Votsberger says, something more wholesome. Shout out Operation United Hope, found all over the webs, charity for active and vets in Tennessee. Very cool. I'm going to come. That was great. Do not come. Do not come. I'm going to come. I wonder what he was talking about. Anyway, my friends, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show if you really do like it. Become a member at Timcast.com because here's the spiel. Ladies and gentlemen, we here at Timcast.com have a mission. We want to cut through the noise, bring you real news and our thoughts on the news. The Timcast Morning Show, Tim Pool Daily News, or the Tim Pool Daily Show, can be found on iTunes and Spotify. Everybody watching right now, go over there, subscribe, like, check it out, whatever. Leave a positive review if you like the podcast. It helps us boost in the rankings. Timcast IRL as well. And look, the fake news corporations, the fake news media, they're going to lie to you. They want to push this political game. We're going to cut through that noise. If you think we do a good job, and you think the crisis is a true threat, go to Timcast.com, click join us. For $10 a month, you can support our efforts. So this show and the nightly show will continue with you as members. We will keep up the work we keep up if you think it is worthy. And that's the only way it's possible. We certainly do have sponsorships, but the majority of what makes this company operate is members. If we didn't have any members, this would all be done. I'd probably just have a single morning show from my office, and that'd be it. It is only because you guys are members that we have a much larger operation and are expanding into cultural endeavors and have many other shows and opportunities to invest and try and create a larger footprint with a culture around support for American values, freedom of speech, the family, all of these good things. We're certainly not the only ones doing it. We're certainly not the best, but I think we do a good job. And if you think so, Timcast.com, click join us. The next segment will be tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Smash that like button before you go, and we'll see you all then.